What's up, guys? Welcome to the Young Guns podcast. Today, we're doing it again. It's our Cup or Bust series. Today, we're talking about the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, baby.
They're having a pretty surprising, season this year. A lot of people thought that they were a rebuilding team or kind of stuck in between the rebuilding and we're contending. But I mean, I think it's safe to say that they're full on contenders and they're trying to win.
I would agree. I mean, look, they looked last year when they started the year. There was a lot of uncertainty in regards to Minnesota because look, they had bought out Ryan Suter, they bought out Zach Parise, and for them it was like, oh, okay, what's Minnesota's intentions now going into it? They brought back Kirill Kaprizov, and I think that Minnesota going into this season, there was an expectation of this team needs to make the playoffs and needs to make a run for it because they're going to run into some cap trouble. And I think they've done a good job. They've surprised a lot of people. I knew they were a good team, and I liked where they were at in terms of their roster and how it was constructed. But the moves that they made at the trade deadline, and even just the way they've played before that too, like they've been very, very impressive. I gotta say, and they're a team to really watch out for in the playoffs because I think they can definitely go further than I think a lot of people expect them to. And it's good for them because they finally have that superstar caliber player that they really, really want in Kirill Kaprizov. He's been fantastic this season, and I think we're yet to see the best from him, even in terms of where he's at. So I think Minnesota's in a really good spot, and we'll kind of see where they go from here. But it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, and a lot of other surprises from players. Matt Boldy, hell of
Yeah,
a player. Matt Zuccarello's still killing it at I believe he's 35 or I want to say 35.
he's 34.
34. Okay, so I was close. And they went to get Marc-Andre Fleury, who, I mean, two-time Stanley Cup, more than that, I think, is a three-time Stanley Cup champ, two-time Stanley Cup champ,
Three-time Stanley Cup champ, and
three-time
four-time Stanley Cup finalist, I believe, or
finalist.
five-time Stanley Cup finalist
You
actually.
know, so I mean, yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, they have the team. They're playing extremely well right now too. I mean, well, will they continue this next season? I mean, that's another question. I mean,
I I don't know. I personally look at their cap. I look at their cap situation right now, and in terms of where they're going to be in the next 3 years, this is it for Minnesota. Like this is their opportunity to because I'm not saying they're not going to compete next year, but they're going to run into a lot of cap trouble, so they're going to have to lose a lot of their players that they already have, and I think that that's going to be a big problem for them. But I think even with that, they've got Kaprizov, they brought in Marc-Andre Fleury. They've had guys that have
uh,
come in.
Tyson Jost, I forgot to mention,
Tyson Jost as
they picked him
well.
up too.
So they've got guys. They've got guys. And I think that they're a team that, you pay attention to how well they've played this season. I think they're a team that if they go to second round, third round, they can play against a team like Colorado. Marc-Andre Fleury beat Colorado last year in the playoffs. So I think he knows how to beat them. And I think that that's going to be a big thing for Minnesota is having a guy and a goaltender like Marc-Andre Fleury of his caliber, being an experienced goaltender, understanding what it takes to win. I think that's going to be huge for Minnesota, and I think that could be the difference between them making a playoff push or being eliminated in the first round. I mean, it depends the team they play against, and it depends how well they perform. But they're a good team, man. I like Matt Boldy. You mentioned Matt Boldy before. Matt Boldy came in, and people knew the expectation that came with him. He was drafted a couple of picks ahead of Caulfield, and there was a lot of hype around him. But he did well in the AHL, looked good, and he's come to the NHL and he's really just tore it up apart. And I think that if he would have started the year in the NHL, he would also be a guy in the conversation for maybe the Calder. So there's definitely an opportunity there for Matt Boldy, and I think he's taken that opportunity and he's ridden with it. He's looked good in it. And I think for Minnesota, they've got themselves a player there, and it's good for them because you've got Kaprizov and you've got Boldy as potentially your two future left wingers. That's a good sign for them. And if Marco Rossi can turn into the player that he's expected to be, Minnesota's future is going to look good as well. So I'm really excited to see what Minnesota does. I really am. I think defensively they're good. Spurgeon, Matt Dumba, obviously he's injured right now, but he's good. Jonas Brodin as well. They've got it all. They've got a really underrated team. And we haven't even mentioned some of the guys that have performed really, really well this year under expectations. I know you want to talk a little bit about that. So,
Well,
in terms of
actually, I was gonna ask you a question that we haven't really asked. In other Cupper Bus videos, I figured like I
yeah, okay.
make a new. I'll create like a new question. Well, create a new question. I mean, like change it up a bit. You know, what are some moves that you think they should have done at the trade deadline that they didn't? Or I mean, what trades do you think that, or do you think like what they did is perfect or is perfect as it is? Because to be honest, trading away Capo Kakkonen,
Yeah.
I think is a major like I don't know why they would. I mean, I know they got Marc Andre Fleury, but this guy is like kind of like would have been the goalie of the future for this team.
Well, I think there's a little bit of an explanation as to why they did that. I mean, look, I kind of like the moves that Minnesota made. I don't think they should have done anything else, to be honest. The reason I think they traded Capo Kakkonen, you've got Wallstead coming up. Like, you know that Jesper Wallstead's you're going to be your goaltender in the future. There's a lot of hype around him. There's a lot of expectation around him. And I think that Minnesota's kind of preparing for that. They're preparing for the opportunity of having Jesper Wallstead come into the NHL at some point, probably next season, maybe the year after, and kind of take the NHL by storm. And I think for Capo Kakkonen, it was kind of just a situation where it was like, we're getting Marc-Andre Fleury. Cam Talbot's played well. You don't want to trade him. And you don't want to have a situation where you're running three goalies. Capo Kakkonen's better in the NHL than he is in the AHL. There's no point in sending him to the AHL. So I think in terms of the move that they made there, you trade a guy, you get an asset back in Jacob Middleton, who I think has played really well for Minnesota in the games that he has played. And I think that it's an opportunity for them to make a cup run again this year, but also not really lose out on the future necessarily, because Wallstead's going to be there. And I think Wallstead's going to be a really good goaltender in the NHL. I have no doubts about that whatsoever. So I understand the move from Minnesota's perspective. At the time, I didn't, but thinking about it from in terms of the fact that they have Wallstead, I think Kakkonen's time in Minnesota was going to come to an end at some point. So rather now than later. And I think, look, with Marc-Andre Fleury, you got a chance of winning a cup. And I think that if they would have kept the same goaltending tandem they would have had before Fleury, I don't know if they would have been able to compete in the playoffs. I think now they have a better chance of competing in the playoffs in terms of having an elite goaltender in the back end. And I think that's what you need to win a Stanley Cup, in my opinion. So there's definitely a lot of things in terms of that. I think if they wanted to make another move, maybe go get Claude Giroux. I know they were interested in him at the time, or maybe bolster their defense. But I think they did okay. Tyson Joseph's a good depth guy as well.
I would have liked maybe Kopp to join the Minnesota Wild. I think he would have been a good. I mean, he's playing great in New York. I mean, like that seems to be a great landing spot for him there. But I mean, I would have liked to see him, or even Max Domi. I think would have fit well in this team.
I think
I
so.
know I know his name was circling around because he could play center and wing, and I feel like that's what they were trying to go for. We have a question here.
No holding
Uh,
back.
from Mr. No Holding Back. They exposed him at the expansion draft, so they were willing to part ways with him beforehand. I mean, yeah, that's also true. So
It's
he
a good
does have a
point.
great point there. Another question that I want to ask at the end, let's just say win or lose the Stanley Cup. We don't know
Yeah.
what's gonna go on with the Minnesota Wild. Who do you think stays and who do you think they part ways with? And I think the one that Minnesota fans are most heavily keen on, knowing what's gonna happen to is Kevin Fiala.
I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation, and I'm kind of glad you brought this up. Kevin Fiala this year is having a career year. He's at 63 points in 71 games. He's been fantastic. In terms of cap space, Minnesota's going to struggle to keep him around. The good thing about Kevin Fiala is
He's an RFA.
he's still a restricted free agent, which means you still have his rights, and it probably means that you'll be able to get him at a cheaper price than you would if you would go to the open market. The thing with Kevin Fiala is he's had such a really good year, so that he's going to ask for a decent amount of money. Now, I don't know how much money that's going to be. I would say, but probably between 6 and 7 million, depending on what type of contract he's looking for. I think Minnesota is going to try to keep him, and I don't see a situation where they try to trade him. But he was linked to trade rumors before the season started, and there was rumors about him potentially being dealt. And I think that's a big mistake for Minnesota's part if they do decide to go that route in the offseason, even if they do miss the playoffs, because I think he's a great player. The one guy that I think is going to leave, and I think he was a pure rental, is Marc-Andre Fleury. I think Marc-Andre Fleury was a guy that they brought in purely for a cup run, purely to make the playoffs and hopefully win the Stanley Cup, and that's about it. I don't think that there's anything else. There's any other expectation for Fleury. I know he's expressed interest in potentially re-signing after this season, but I think with Minnesota's cap space and where they want to put everything else, and I think with Wallstead coming up, like we mentioned before, I think there's no room for Fleury. So I think if he wins a cup, regardless, or even if he loses, I don't know if he goes back to Minnesota. And in terms of everybody else, I mean, Delorier and Bjukstad, these guys are they're unrestricted free agents. There isn't really much else Minnesota's going to do. And again, they're cap strapped, so it's going to be a little bit complicated for them. But if they can find a way to keep Kevin Fiala regardless, I think that's a successful offseason in my eyes. But we'll see. We'll see how he performs in the playoffs. But for Minnesota, I think that's their main goal going into the offseason is Kevin Fiala and getting him locked up.
So I'm not gonna, we're not gonna beat around the bush here. Do you think they're gonna go far in the playoffs? What are your predictions?
I'll be honest with you. I see this team going second, third round. Like third round, I'm gonna say third round, and the reason why is because I'm big on Minnesota. They're a team that I've always kind of admired, and I've always had an appreciation for, and I like seeing Minnesota succeed. When Minnesota succeed, I think hockey's a better place when Minnesota succeeds. And it's gonna sound crazy, but like I'm a huge fan of Minnesota. I like them. I think they're a great team. So in terms of them going to the playoffs, I think third round, Western Conference Final, like no holding back is saying here. I completely agree. I think that's where they're going to end up going. If they go to the Cup Final, they could win it. I think they're a team that's an underdog to win the Stanley Cup. I don't know if they do, but they're an underdog to do it, and it's going to be fascinating to watch in terms of that. What do you think?
Well, here's the thing. They're not if this team was in the East, I think they're a first round exit team.
Really?
Yes. Well, I mean, yeah, you got Tampa Bay, Carolina, Boston,
Yeah.
Toronto,
Yeah.
Florida, Pittsburgh, New York. All these teams are like really pretty solid. And
Yeah.
let's say they go up against, I don't know, I don't know if it's well. I mean, I don't know how the standings are gonna finish, but like if they face an Edmonton or a Nashville or right now Dallas is kind of has a wild card spot. I feel like those are easy wins. I feel like in the West, besides Colorado and Calgary, I mean, there's not much. There's not many other. There's not other powerhouses there. I mean, you could argue. I guess the St. Louis Blues are pretty good, but
Yeah, but they've struggled
I
recently.
think I think Minnesota is out of the top three teams in the Western Conference. I would see them as the third team there. So I mean I agree with you. I would see them either making it to the second round or to the to the Western Conference Finals. So
I think
I could see them versus Calgary. I feel like that would be a pretty cool matchup for the finals.
well, yeah, and I think I think what's interesting about Minnesota too is the fact that like they're a team that in recent years they've struggled to get past that hump in the playoffs. They've always been out in the first round, sometimes the second round. I think this is the first time where I've looked at Minnesota's team like from top to bottom, and I've said, you know what, this team can actually do something, and that's going to be really interesting to see. Because I think, look, the best move they made was getting Marc-Andre Fleury, in my opinion. I think that move is gonna look. I know they traded a first round pick, but let's be honest, they don't need it. It's true, and I think that it's gonna help them out. I think if Fleury plays the way he's been playing right now for Minnesota, they have endless possibilities of doing pretty much anything. Mean Girls hockey comment was pretty funny. She goes, "Toronto will be on the golf course after first round." I mean, that's everyone's expectation, since every year they've kind of failed. But going back to Minnesota. Um, just they hopefully won't be in the golf course after round one. That's basically what we're trying to say here.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a cup or I wouldn't say it's a bust if they lose.
That's
I
that's
mean,
what I was
I
thinking
mean,
about before.
I don't think that they'll get the same production out of the veterans next season as they do this year.
Yeah.
But I would see them maybe a wild card next year as well. It all depends on who they sign or what the trades are, or who they
Well,
draft.
what I
Uh,
really what I really like about Minnesota, and actually we didn't mention it, so I'm going to mention it now. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys that have scored 20 or more goals this season. Their depth is absolutely incredible. It's incredible that,
Yeah.
and, and they've got one guy at 40 goal scorer. Obviously, it's Kaprizov, but like Zuccarello's at 72 points in 63 games. He's 34 years old. Obviously, like you said, I don't think he keeps up that production next year. But I think Minnesota's got it because guys are playing on career years and they're motivated and they're playing well. So this is their chance for them.
Well, not that many injuries as well.
That too.
Like let's be
And
honest
Marcus
here.
Marcus Foligno's another one too that's had a career year. Ryan Hartman's another one that's playing fantastic hockey. So they've got that, and I think that that's going to be huge for them. Their decor as well. Jared Spurgeon 36 points, Matt Dumba 26, Brodin 27, Goligoski 29. He's been a good signing for them when they needed him to be. So I like everything Minnesota's done. I do. I have no complaints with them whatsoever. So
So the question is, cup. Let's finish it here. Cup or bust?
I like you said, I don't think it's a bust if they don't make it. For me personally, I don't think they win the cup, but I think they come close. I think third round, like we mentioned. I don't think it's a bust. I think it's a bust if you look at it from the fact that in the next 3 years they're not going to have cap space, and that might be the reason why this is their only chance at potentially going this far. But in terms of like, if I had to say, oh, is this the end for Minnesota? Probably not. Chances are they'll be back here soon. But I think there's a bigger expectation of them potentially going for a cup run. So I'm gonna say bust for now, but I want them to do well. So bust, but with high hopes is what I'm gonna say.
I'm gonna copy
You?
your answer. I think it's a bust as well. Who knows? Who knows what could happen later on? I mean, maybe they could pull some kind of Tampa Bay cap kind of shit. Who
Yeah.
knows? They're whiz with the caps. I mean, listen, who knows what's gonna happen? So,
Take Shea Weber's contract and just throw him at LTIR.
yeah, you could do that too. So, anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And Minnesota fans, you guys loved the last video we made about you guys. We want to hear other comments. What's
Yeah.
are they going to win the Stanley Cup? Who are they going to re-sign Kevin Fiala? We want to hear it all. So, we love the engagement. So, anyways, till the next time.